Well, Anna, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm always excited to talk to somebody like yourself. But before we dive in, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, sure. Okay. Well, my name's Anna Brown, and I am a nutritional therapist. So I work with really anybody who has a specific health condition that they would like to address in a more natural way. So I'm also a naturopath. So really, that just means food as medicine and nature as healer, which I hope doesn't sound too airy-fairy. It's actually very scientifically based in actual fact. But yes, so I work with people who have specific conditions, but I also just work with anyone who wants to improve their overall health and well-being.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I studied at the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and I'm registered with BANT, which is the governing body. I'm also an accredited reflux practitioner. So I do have a bit of a fascination with gut health, and I love to work with people who are struggling with anything to do with digestion. And often when people find themselves on antacid medication that they would really love to be off, and I can help them to either support the digestion better when they're on them, or if it's appropriate, help them to come off those tablets. I also have a bit of a background in yoga and meditation as well, having taught for many years. So I have quite a deep understanding of the connection between our emotional and mental well-being and our physical well-being. And so often I will weave aspects of that into the protocols when I'm working with clients, because they can be amazingly helpful, such as breathing practices and their effect on digestion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yes.
love that. That's part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast today, because we're specifically going to talk about our energy levels and how nutrition can support us in that. And I think specifically for my audience listening, mainly women,
Yeah.
we all get to that stage where we reach what, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and we just out. We are
Yeah,
exhausted. And I
absolutely.
know for us as businesswomen, for those of us who are running our own businesses, we need to keep going. But there's so many times where we just feel there's no more energy in us left at the end of the day. So I really am excited to talk to you about that in a little bit. But I'm intrigued to hear about your story, if you don't mind sharing it with us. What made you decide to go and become a nutritionist?
Yes, well, I think I'd always had an interest in health and nutrition. So, all through my life and when my kids were young, I had another career before this one. I was actually a textile designer, which I did for many years. But during that time of working as a textile designer, and in the greeting card industry, I also began to teach yoga. And I suppose my dial turned more and more towards health and well-being in my own life, because I think I saw the tremendous benefits myself, to how I managed and juggled my home life and my work life, how much better at it I was when I was eating well, when I was looking after my emotional, mental well-being as well, when I was keeping up with my yoga practice, all of those things that I could see the direct impact that they were having. And then when my kids flew the nest, I had this lovely moment where I thought, gosh, I can think about me for a little bit, I can maybe pursue something that I am really passionate about. And I knew I wanted to carry on teaching yoga, but I decided to go traveling for a while. So I actually rented out my house, and I ended up on the hoof on and off for about 3 years, which was really amazing. And I realized that's kind of a lucky position to be in, but it was like a hiatus in my life. It was a moment, I was at a crossroads, and I had choices that I could make.
Mm.
So while I was traveling, I had this penny dropping moment that I actually wanted to go back to college, and I wanted to study something that I felt had been a lifelong passion, but I hadn't had the capacity to delve into it in the way that I really wanted to. So I went back to studying in 2016, 17, and thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It was quite an experience to return to study again after so many years, but I absolutely loved it. And So then I've been working in this field ever since and really, really enjoying turning my attention towards this, what's basically a bit of a passion.
I know. And I love that because it just shows as well, that I think a lot of women, when their kids leave to go to college or university, they are all facing a crossroad where all of a sudden they've got more time on their hands. And it's lovely to hear your story because that is also just an example of, hey, life doesn't finish there. You know,
Yeah.
do something for yourself, go back to
Yeah.
college, study something, create something, start a business, a side hustle, whatever you want to do. And I
Mm.
love that because it's such an inspiration for other people to go, actually, yeah, I haven't thought
Yeah.
about that. Let me do something for myself now.
And I think often the moment when your children leave home does tie in with those perimenopause, menopause years, whatever. And I think for a lot of women, they can feel a sense of loss and closing down. And
Mm,
actually, the other side of that coin is that you're freer. You're actually more able to be yourself. You don't have to be defined by the roles that led you to this moment. And actually, I had a lovely moment where I turned that on its head and I thought, gosh, this is actually an opening door. This is
yeah,
actually beginning, and I can pursue something for myself.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about nutrition then. One of
Mm,
the things that we're going to dive in today is specifically talk about our energy levels
yeah.
and how to keep that sustainable all day long. Now,
Yeah.
one of the things that you mentioned is breakfast. And as soon as I talk about breakfast, we know that good old saying, breakfast is the best meal of the day or the
Yeah.
most important meal of the day. But from your perspective, why is that the foundation for us in the
Mm,
right way
mm.
to start the day in order to kind of maintain our energy already from that point onwards?
Okay. So, one of the reasons why breakfast is so important is because your blood sugar levels drop during the night.
Mm,
And so, therefore, you need to rectify that by eating food, but not any old food. You've got to see breakfast as being like the foundation of the whole of the rest of your day. A solid house is built on good foundations. If you want to be as steady as a rock, energy wise, all day, you need to have a really good breakfast. And what I mean by a really good breakfast actually is a savory breakfast.
mm,
So, that classic kind of toast and jam, cup of coffee, bowl of cereal is not going to do you any favors whatsoever. What you want is something savory. So think about eggs or smoked salmon or something like that. I'm a big fan of eating leftovers for breakfast. And that way you can have a much more sustainable energy level. If you are a toast person, it's not the end of the world, but choose wisely. Choose
yeah.
toast that is whole grain, that is full of seeds. Pair your toast with something savory. If you're a porridge lover, um, that's okay too. Oats do actually have some really lovely nutritional benefits. However, it is important to realize they are fundamentally a carbohydrate, which
Yes.
breaks down into sugar. And I think in a moment, I'm going to just explain a little bit more about why that's problematic potentially. But they break down into sugar. And so you want to mitigate the effects that's going to have on your body and your energy levels by introducing additional things, by dressing up your porridge with protein and fiber. So you'll have nuts, nut butters, seeds, protein powder, handful of berries or whatever. And this then becomes the foundation of your day. If you don't break your fast with the right kind of food, you'll be tripping up over yourself all day,
Yeah.
trying to play catch up on your energy levels.
Yeah. And that's why people, when come lunchtime, I guess, that's why people are feeling like they're absolutely starving because they haven't had breakfast. And now
Mm.
they just feel like they need to stuff them with a bunch of food because they are so hungry at that point as well.
Yeah.
Am I right for saying that? Because I can
Yeah.
only refer to myself because I'm not a big breakfast person. And I will say it hand on heart. I don't like eating breakfast because I just don't feel hungry in the
You
morning.
don't feel hungry. But just remember that I didn't say you have to eat breakfast early in the morning.
Yeah.
Breakfast is breaking your fast. In other words, it's the first meal of your day. It's the first thing you
Ah,
put in your mouth. So I, like you, am not actually that hungry first thing, but I always make sure that when I break fast, I'm eating the right food for the rest of my day.
Yes. Yes.
Because if we don't, we are, and we set up for some kind of desperation in the body where it's trying to claw, it's trying to get energy, basically. That's where we tend to make poor choices. That's when we reach for unhealthy foods. And yeah, I can chat more about that, but yes.
No, because like I say, I can only use myself as an example because I know I go through that.
Mhm.
But also, then one thing I've learned that is very, very good to eat for breakfast, no
Yep.
matter what time that is, it's just a boiled egg sometimes, even because they're easy to make. Boil them, put them in the fridge. The next day, they're ready. You don't even have to faff around.
Yeah, and also if you are somebody like yourself who doesn't want to eat the boiled egg at 6:30 in the morning, you can boil those eggs and take them with you. I mean, an
Yeah,
egg is a beautifully transportable food item.
yeah,
It's got its own protective shell. You can eat it whenever you like. So
yeah.
eggs are pretty darn perfect food. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. But let's talk a little bit about our emotions, because
Yeah.
I think the emotions and the sustainable energy, keeping our emotions level at all times, how do they correlate to each other as well? If we were to think about our energy, but also how they affect emotions as
Yeah.
we go through our days.
Yeah. Well, you'll find that energy and emotional stability and having a clear mind are all linked together.
Yeah.
So when you get that kind of grumpiness, when you get that kind of fuzzy, fuggy head where you can't really think straight, when you feel that energy drop, um, you kind of lack concentration at work, all of these things, you should be having light bulb moments, basically, that your blood sugar balance has become imbalanced.
Mm.
So all of these are expressions of, symptoms of your blood sugar going awry.
Okay.
You want me to tell you a little bit about that, Henriette?
Yes, please. Let's talk about the blood sugar because you
Yeah.
mentioned it already
Okay.
before, and I think
Yeah.
people are getting intrigued about this now.
Yeah. So, yeah, blood sugar. I mean, I'll just talk about it as you need steady energy all day long. That's the bottom line. And if you're going to have steady energy, you need to start with the diet, because getting that fundamentally right will positively impact the blood sugar. Um, if you don't, you're going to be in trouble later on. So
Mm.
perhaps we should actually go slightly before the blood sugar and just look at what does it actually look like to have enough energy and to be stable in your emotions. Like,
Yeah.
what should we be expecting? What's the optimum we can expect of that in ourselves? And if you think about when you wake up in the morning and your body produces cortisol and you're getting ready for the day, you have this kind of rise in energy. And that energy should rise and it should peak and it should plateau throughout the day. And then it should gently ease off as you move into the evening towards bed. That's your optimal. But if we're making poor food choices, if we're skipping meals, then we'll find we're much more likely to be on what we call the blood sugar roller coaster. So
Mm.
that's where you're having frequent energy spikes because of what you're eating and then crashes, so that in the end you get a pattern that looks like a yo-yo, up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's your energy, but also your mood, your ability to concentrate and focus, up and down, up and down, instead of this lovely, gentle rise, sustain, curve,
Mm.
which is what we want. So, what's going on there? Well, basically, when you eat sugary foods and carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose in the body, and that's what we use for energy. As the blood glucose rises in our blood, we produce a hormone called insulin that basically helps that sugar to be stored in the cells, and then your blood sugar goes back to a normal level. But if we are spiking our blood sugar by what we're eating, if we're getting a rapid rise, an excessive amount of insulin, and then a drop, that's when we end up feeling grumpy,
Mm.
out of sorts, can't concentrate, can't think straight, and undoubtedly will be reaching for the nearest sugary snack to rectify that imbalance. And before we know it, we're on this roller coaster and we can't get off. So that's why the breakfast is this foundation. Once you're on that and you're rising steady, then you're on the right path and you're much less likely to be drawn towards eating the wrong foods.
Yeah.
But yeah, intrinsically linked, your mood, your energy levels, your mental clarity.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that you're saying that they walk hand in hand. And again, I can only talk for myself here, but I'm sure a lot of ladies would resonate with this, is you get to that point where you feel like, oh, I feel like having a snack. And then you quickly jump to the kitchen or you quickly go down to the little shop around the corner and you go, oh, what can I have? Oh, something sugary. And that's when you start making the wrong choices, because you grab the quickest thing, the easiest to nibble on, which tend to be a little chocolate bar or a packet of crisps or anything that is just not right for you at that moment. And then you feel good and you feel like this is great.
For a moment.
But then for a very short time thereafter, you feel again like you are just exhausted. And I feel, oh, let me just have something again. And it almost becomes a bit of an addiction where you constantly crave now that sugary thing, whatever it is that you feel you enjoy eating.
Because you're trying to fix the blood sugar low. So you're quite right. You know, if I wanted to paint a classic blood sugar roller coaster day, it would begin with a coffee and a croissant on your way to work. And then by 11 o'clock, you've got no energy left. You feel a bit irritated with all your work colleagues. You go to the vending machine, you get a chocolate bar to see you through to lunch. Lunchtime, you have a sandwich on the hoof with a packet of crisps. 3 o'clock, energy is on the floor. That's a classic time for people. 3 o'clock, energy is on the floor. Your mood is on the floor as well. And so you reach for something else to tide you over till supper. But when you get home, you're agitated and overtired. And then you eat a packet of salted peanuts while you're preparing dinner. You can see the picture. You can see how that happens so very easily. And then you just end up making, as you said, making one poor choice after another while your poor body tries to find equilibrium.
Yes. So we can't blame work when we get home grumpy.
There'll always be a little bit of that. I mean, you know, there can be a lot on and people can be tricky. But I think the thing to bear in mind is that if you are armed with the right nutrition and your energy levels are good and you are not so reactive, you will just deal with all of these things so much better. Our capacity to take on board stuff increases because we have this boundless pot of energy that we've created by making the right dietary choices.
So with everybody listening here now, I think they can kind of understand with what it is that you're trying to say, us listening to our bodies and, you know, trying to avoid those kind of spikes in our blood sugar. But is there about 2 or 3 tips you can tell or share with the audience here as an example, just to what they need to look out for and maybe start tweaking a little bit here and there just to get out of that roller coaster, basically with their sugars, with their blood sugars?
Yeah. And, you know, it's surprisingly easy. They're things
even better.
The things that, you know, we often overlook. You've mentioned one of them already, which is breakfast. But I'd say the first thing is to actually eat 3 meals. And it's not just any old meal, of course, because I'm a nutritional therapist. I want that meal to be really nourishing and balanced, and satisfying. Because if we get the right ratio on our plates of protein, of complex carbohydrates, of vegetables and salads and, you know, whole grains and things, then that meal becomes complete and satisfying. And then we have no need to snack in between. So, you know, if your meal is not taken, if you're not able to go from one meal to the next without reaching for a snack, there's something wrong with the meal you just ate.
Very
So
interesting.
I always say to people who come to me and I look at their diet diary and I look at their energy levels and they say, oh, every day at 3 o'clock, I'm exhausted. Whenever that happens, I always say to them, look back, reflect. What was the content of the meal you just ate before that energy dip? Because if you had the energy dip, no doubt the meal was not sustaining enough. So we need 3 balanced, sustaining, satisfying meals to keep us going without reaching for the wrong foods. And of course, with my digestive nutritional therapy hat on, it's also very, very good for the digestion to have a really good break between eating. Another whole story, but anyway, it is.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is something we've touched on already, which is that foundational breakfast. Third thing would be make sure that you're having protein with every meal. Because not only is protein, when we eat dietary protein, it gets broken down into amino acids. These are like the building blocks, all repair and recovery and growth, everything in the body, all our neurotransmitters and things and our hormones. But fundamentally, in relation to energy, why it's beneficial is it slows down the rate at which the carbohydrate gets broken down. So we don't get such a dramatic sugar spike. Also, protein contains an amino acid called serotonin, and serotonin is really important for our mood. So when we're talking about, staying emotionally stable and things, that protein is really vital in there because you need that serotonin to feel good. It's sometimes called our happy hormone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So protein, and good quality protein with every meal. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, you need to be thinking about pulses. You need to be thinking about tofu and tempeh, lentils, all of those things, nuts and seeds that can, take the place. And sometimes when we are vegan or vegetarian, there is less protein in those things. So we have to think about having a kind of smorgasbord of protein to build up the amount that we might get from animal sources.
Yeah.
So protein is the next one. And then number 4 on my list would be fiber, because fiber is wonderful because it again slows down the rate at which the sugar is released into our bodies and released from the food. It slows our digestion down, and when our digestion is slower, we get this feeling of satiety, so fullness, satisfaction, and that means we have less sugar cravings. So fiber is really your friend. So simple way to bring more fiber in is to swap your carbohydrates from refined to unrefined. So you're taking out white bread and white rice and white pasta. You're putting in whole grains, root vegetables, nuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, all of those things, beans and pulses that are full of fiber, which is also, again, brilliant for your digestive system and your microbiome, which is also linked to your mental health. So fiber, really, really important for having a slow energy release.
Yes.
Yeah. And then 2 other little simple add-on ones. One is kind of what to avoid, really, which is stimulants. And I know that seems obvious. In a way, we know that we shouldn't have too many stimulating foods like coffee, black tea, fizzy drinks, caffeinated drinks, alcohol, although I'm hoping that nobody's drinking while they're at work. But, that sort of thing, but might not realize that it's actually because it spikes the blood sugar. So they're really not good for us at all. If you are wedded to your coffee, then I suggest that you limit it to 1 cup a day and you drink your coffee with your breakfast, so with food, because again, that mitigates the blood sugar spike.
Yes.
But otherwise, turn to beautiful herbal teas, make sure they're good quality teas, and you can have alternative coffees. You can have chicory and dandelion and mushroom coffees. They can all be absolutely delicious. Mushroom coffees are brilliant because you can get some that have a small amount of regular coffee mixed with adaptogenic medicinal mushrooms that give you that kind of brightness that you can get from coffee. So they can be very beneficial. And the last point really is about staying hydrated. And it seems very obvious, but sometimes we don't realize that the first thing to go when we don't drink enough is our energy, our ability to concentrate, and our mood. So make sure you're having 2 liters of water a day. That intake, or more on a hot day like today, or if you're exercising lots, and that intake can come from water. It can come also from herbal teas. You cannot include caffeinated drinks, coffee and tea, black coffee and tea, because they're diuretic. In other words, they make you lose more. So, but herbal teas do count. And really, those would be my 6 pointers. And I think anybody who adopted them would feel the benefit for their energy levels throughout the day. Yeah.
And I can only speak for myself because in the last couple of weeks, well, I say couple of weeks, the last 4 weeks, I've completely cut out sugar in my diet and I've completely cut out carbs, but having a high protein intake breakfast, which is why I'm saying breakfast now is my boiled eggs, lunch and dinner. And I can honestly say by just making those small changes in relation to what you said here as well today, my energy levels has come back up. I mean, sometimes I come 5 o'clock and I'm still active and I'm working and I'm like, what's going on? This is just not normal. Normally I was already exhausted at this point, but I have that energy back that I haven't had in many, many years. So I can only talk from my own experience, but from what you shared here today, 100%.
Well,
I've seen the difference in
walking
myself.
Evidence.
Yes, which I felt today was perfect for us to do this recording because I've done this for 4 weeks and I can absolutely feel a difference. So I highly vouch for what you said.
Emotional state?
Oh, emotional, so much better. I mean, concentration wise, can concentrate for hours on end, even though I take a couple of breaks in between. But my mood levels, yes, I'm feeling more happy, more excited. I mean, having more positive conversations, especially at home, because sometimes after a busy day, you slump on the sofa and you just go grumpy, grumpy, grumpy. But here, you know, it's not like that. So I can vouch for what you're saying 100% because I'm living it for the last 4 weeks and it just feels amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Yes. Well, there we go. You're proof. You're proof that it works.
I know. Well, this is the thing. This is why I wanted to have this conversation because it's not just hearing from an expert yourself. I wanted to put myself as the example to say that it does work. And these 6 tips that you shared here is so easy to implement.
So easy. Yeah.
I think people find it very hard going, but I'm so used to my diet and what I always eat. Honestly, just take one day at a time, tweak it, one day at a time, tweak it. And that's what I did. And it has made such a difference to a point now where it's become a habit to actually think about my breakfast, think about my lunch, and being more mindful and excited about what I can do that is healthy for me rather than just falling back into an old habit of, you know, my nutrition comes all the way down the list. It's not important.
No, I think you're right. And I think also you made a very good point there, which is that you can go one thing at a time. I mean, even though those 6 things are actually relatively easy, if they aren't already aligned with what you're doing, that can feel like a big change. So it wouldn't matter if you took 6 weeks to arrive at the 6 list. You could do one a week. You could just introduce one of those new changes into your life a week. And that way they would very easily become habitual. And you wouldn't feel overwhelmed. So it's a very good point you make. And I always say baby steps, you know, steady baby steps. This is how we make changes, because fundamentally, what I always say to people who come and work with me is I don't want to offer you a short-term fix. This is actually about understanding your own body, how to be in charge of your own health for forever, you know, for the journey going forward. And, you know, they're lifetime habit changes. And sometimes that can take a wee while to implement. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. Just keep on that road to bringing in new, positive, constructive habits. And anyway, you'll be encouraged by the benefits as you go along.
That's it. You know, after the first week, seeing the benefits encouraged me to do it again. And then you see more benefits and you do it again. So that encouragement is always there. And you get it from yourself because you can see the results and you can feel it as well. So hand on heart, honestly, changing your nutrition and becoming more mindful of what you eat. Best thing I've ever done in a long, long time. So highly vouch for what you do. And thank you so much for this conversation. So for those of you listening, I know that you've listened to what Anna said and you're maybe a little bit excited. You're not quite sure where to start. Well, Anna's here to help you. She's got an amazing lead magnet called Mindful Eating for Better Digestion. Tell us a little bit about this lead magnet, and I'll make sure to reference it into the show notes.
Yes, okay. So, as I mentioned, I do work with people who have digestive issues. And I think that often people don't realize that it isn't just about what you eat. It's actually about when you eat it and how you eat it. And these things are actually really, really important. And so I put together this very simple but quite thorough handout that can help you to bring your attention onto how you're eating. Because when we eat, for instance, on the hoof, we are not actually activating our digestive system in the way it needs to be activated to break down the food effectively. So if you want to get the most from your food, the most nutrition from your food, and you want to have the calmest, happiest digestion, no bloating, no inconsistent bowel movements, all of those things, actually thinking about how you eat can be really, really beneficial. In fact, that's actually one of the foundations also, is to consider how you eat. Yeah. So that handout is to help people in that direction. Yeah.
Amazing. And if you would like that handout, obviously go down to the show notes. The details will be there for where you can go and download it. And I think that in relation to just the 6 steps that Anna shared here today is going to help you immensely, just starting that first step and just thinking more a little bit about your nutrition, what it is that you're doing to get more sustainable energy, because I think that's what we all want at the end of the day. And for those of you as well, if you want to take it one step further and you feel you would like to have a conversation with Anna, obviously you can do that. She's got all the details on her website where you can go and book a chat with her. Just follow the link in my show notes that will take you there. And then please, by all means, go and connect with Anna via her social media. And of course, those details will be in my show notes as well. But more importantly, Anna, thank you so much for enduring the heat, sitting here with me today, having a great conversation and sharing all your knowledge with everybody. I really do appreciate your time and your expertise. And
thank you very much.
It's just nice.
Time to chat, because these are things I feel passionate about. And if there's just one person who can positively change their eating habits after listening to our chat, I'll be very happy.
Amazing. Will do. Right. Everything for you guys will be in the show notes. Reach out to Anna, have a conversation with her, or at least go and download that lead magnet. Thank you so much, Anna. We'll be in touch very soon again.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.